Hello everyone and welcome to Of God in Mind, and I'm here today to discuss a little bit of news with you all. So the French election has just finished up and Emmanuel Macron has beat Marine Le Pen to become the next French president with a fairly significant margin of 66% compared to her 34%. Now this election is interesting because, like a lot of others at the moment, it's been between a candidate standing for globalization, that is sort of global economy, free trade between a lot of nations, movement of people and jobs and resources rather freely between countries, and a candidate who stands more for nationalization, for closing down borders, keeping immigration to a minimum, focusing on a nation's own production and the employment within it, and trying to ensure that they're getting the best deals out of free trade and the movement of people and resources around. The most recent example of this is President Trump in the United States coming to victory on his campaign of bringing American jobs back to America and cutting down immigration from Mexico and other nations, and really focusing on that country and pulling out of, or lowering the involvement in agreements such as NATO, the UN, and various other global sort of entities. The difference with the French election, however, is that in this case it was the globalizer who won. Emmanuel Macron stands very much for globalization, for the European Union, and for free trade, and he's won with 66% of the vote compared to Miss Le Pen with 34% of the vote, which is in some ways an interesting change, because there's definitely problems with the current model of capitalism and globalization, which leads to jobs often just being sent to whichever country will do them cheapest, regardless of human rights, regardless of how that country is doing that with its human rights abuse, paying its workers and so forth. And it's been leaving products cheap, but with a high cost in the human labor on the other end, and a high cost to workers in their own country who can't find low-skilled work or sometimes even high-skilled work anymore, because the demand for cheap products has led to all those becoming overseas, and the demand for profit margins, not always cheap products. But in this case, France has said that they want to keep going with they've said they don't want Marine Le Pen's vision of France. How many of that 66% is as on board with Macron's global vision is yet to be seen. But there's other elements to this that also make it interesting. France is currently a very socialist sort of country, leaning more on very high social security, government employment, and less on making it free and easy for corporations to set themselves up to do those things, for private healthcare and so forth. Basically looking out for all the people, high taxes, that sort of thing, as compared to low taxes, lots of business and little oversight over it. But Mr. Macron is in a lot of ways looking to change that a little bit. So a lot of his main policies stand around making changes to that, looking to make budget savings of 60 billion euros, so that France can stick to the EU limit, cutting public investments worth over 50 billion over 5 years, and this is apparently coming from environmental measures, apprenticeships, digital innovations, and public infrastructure. And he's looking to lower the corporation tax from 33.3% down to 25%. How he's going to do this without making too significant changes to social security is yet to be seen, but he is also promising to make some cuts there. He's looking to... I lost my section. He's looking to... I can't cut it now. He's looking to cut the number of public servants by 120,000, excluding hospitals, not cutting any medical or healthcare workers. He's trying to cut the number of parliamentary deputies and senators by about a third, and he's also going to try and cut the social security contributions that the people have to pay by about 500 euros annually for someone on a monthly net salary of 2,200 euros. So he's looking to boost the economy a bit by cutting down essentially the tax on people on that sort of amount. But he's also looking to increase spending a little bit by recruiting 10,000 new police officers and getting a couple of extra prisons. If he can manage this, it's probably a pretty good thing. He's also looking to change the work week a bit. So France currently has a 35-hour working week, but he's looking to get a bit of flexibility in that and giving extra hours worked that are free of social security deductions, as well as a bit of simplification to pensions. Now, he's also looking to do a bit of stuff with the EU, which he'll probably have a bit of trouble with, because unlike Le Pen, who wanted France to do all this stuff on its own, Macron is going to have to go through all that bureaucracy, the various other countries involved, and try and get their contributions out of this as well. So he's looking to increase border security from the EU, create a defense project to sort of promote joint military products. Sorry, border security is the wrong word, but he wants to focus defense more on an EU basis rather than a per country basis. He's looking to, and a lot more is around free trade essentially. He's looking to set up, no, I was correct, he does want looking to create a 5,000 strong force of EU border patrols, of EU border guards, and he's looking, as well as the sort of joint EU defense fund, he's also looking to do a bunch of free trade type stuff with the EU. So promoting free trade deals such as CETA, which is the EU and Canada deal, to look to give the EU its own sort of separate budget, finance minister, and parliament. So for the Eurozone, that is the countries that use the euro, not quite all of them. And he's also looking to take a bit of a hard line in the Brexit negotiations, that is Britain leaving the EU. So in regards to trade, he wants to ensure that the single market rules apply fully to all trade partners involved in that. And that's probably where most of his changes lie, around economy, around trade. He has a couple of little other projects. He looks to increase France's reliance on green technologies. He wants to renovate poorly insulated homes in France to insulate them, I suppose, to cut down on the energy, both on the energy usage to keep homes heated, and also to help out those people in those homes. And one of the weirder ones, he wants to make sure that the food provided in school and work canteens must be organic or produced in France. The organic is probably the weirder part there, but produced in France could be a bit of a concession to that sort of nationalist sentiment, or this could just be his own personal project. And he's also got some other stranger ones in education, in the areas of special need, particularly in poor suburbs. He wants to limit the class sizes in primary schools to 12 students per teacher, um, which is a good idea if you can get enough teachers to do that and pay them, which, given his other cuts, is probably going to be a little difficult. I don't quite know the education situation in France. I just know here in Australia, and I know several teachers, and well, it would be nice having 12 pupils per class. It's often not practical, especially in the poorer suburbs where actually getting teachers at all in those areas is often quite difficult. And he's got an idea to give French teenagers a cultural pass with €500 to spend on cultural pursuits such as cinema, theatres, and books, which is probably a good idea. Expensive idea with all these cuts, but it gives a boost to the arts, to culture, and the important part that these can play, especially in the lives of young people who are still sort of seeking their own expression and finding their own way. So that's just a bit of an overview on the election results there and what they might mean for France. I'm by no means an expert at this, but just thought it might be good to give you all a quick lowdown. That's everything. See you next time.